Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge. The Russian President, Mr. Vladimir Putin, visited New Delhi from 4th to 5th December 2025, his first since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and his 10th since he assumed power 25 years ago. And ladies and gentlemen, this was Mr. Putin's 20th meeting with Prime Minister Modi since the latter became the Prime Minister in 2014. Now, this visit was not just a ceremonial reaffirmation of old ties. It was a calculated geopolitical maneuver by the two sides. During the visit, an array of agreements and MOUs were signed between the two countries, ranging from defense, nuclear energy, agriculture, food, health, manpower exchange, and long-term connectivity projects. But the much anticipated announcement on a major defense deal did not happen. In fact, India has not signed any major defense deal with Russia since the Ukraine invasion. Now, the agreements signed, they look like a routine cooperation, but the message is clear. The partnership is neither stagnant, it is vibrant, nor is it overshadowed by the global pressure. The two sides are willing to defy Western discomfort and pursue their own strategic interests. But the real question tonight is, are these agreements a genuine roadmap to future cooperation, or is India doubling down on Moscow, which is heavily under sanction, and is Russia trying to use New Delhi as a gateway to relevance in Asia? What was behind the warm handshakes and the bear hugs? What does Russia's outreach tell us about its political anxieties and ambitions? Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we challenge the narratives, the motives, and the power play game behind Mr. Putin's high-profile visit. I have with me Ambassador Asif Durrani and Ambassador Riaz Bukhari. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Ambassador's Lounge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asif, let me start with you, mate. Now, this partnership, do you think it's being revived out of mutual strategic need or mutual insecurity?
Imran, I think it's not a new partnership.
Yes, it's not.
It has a history. And over the years, it has strengthened. And we could see the proof of it when America imposed sanctions after the Ukraine war. And it was India which was the biggest beneficiary of having trade relations with Russia, especially its oil. In fact, India not only purchased oil at a cheaper rate, it sold it in the open market with a lot of profits, not only to the West, but also to the Arab countries. So this is something India could play on both sides of the wickets, and which it did. And it also reaffirmed its loyalty to Russia. Americans were annoyed, there's no doubt about it. But if they or the Western powers, they think that India is going to abandon Russia, then they were mistaken, because it was India which, since its independence, had a relationship with the former Soviet Union, and which continued even after the breakup of Soviet Union. It continued with Russia, and their cooperation, not only in the economic field, but especially in the defense field, has remained strengthened. Although now you can say in percentage terms, India's defense purchases have now gone down to 36%.
Exactly.
which used to be between 65 to 70%. Say especially in 1971 when they had the Treaty of Friendship. So it was at its peak, more than 75% armament was of Soviet made. It continues. And Russia is not isolated. If we think that it's isolated, it's not the case. And that was very much expressed during the joint press conference when Putin said that why the West is objecting to India buying Russian oil
when they are
while they themselves are buying the fuel. Not only the gas, but also nuclear fuel. Even the United States is purchasing that. So these are the things that it's a stable relationship between Russia and India.
Asif, what was the much anticipated agreement on major defense? There was a talk that probably the fifth generation planes which Russia had offered to India, that did not materialize. So do you see that the relationship between the two, it is being subjected to testing times?
I think this hi-fi or the modern aircraft was not an issue. India signed an MOU of making spares on the spares agreement they had, and that's very important. And that shows a durable partnership when you have agreement on defense spares, which and then also transfer of technology. So India is enjoying best of both the worlds because they are purchasing defense armament as well as transfer of technology. And it was Russia or Soviet Union earlier. They in fact were quite forthcoming in transferring technology, which India cannot expect from the West or from the United States.
Raz, coming to you, there was this delegation of private businessmen, especially the Adani Group and other major importers of defense equipment who went to Moscow. That was during the visit of Indian Defense Secretary to Moscow. And what was the outcome of that those meetings?
This visit of a private entrepreneur from Indian side was not much highlighted in the media.
It was not much highlighted.
Yeah, but the major objective of this was to explore the opportunities, again, for the transfer of technology to India. So that, India can manufacture the equipment of Russian origin within India. Because as we know, the major, defense component, armed component of, Indian defense forces, it is from Russian origin. So they need some local manufacturers to provide them with spares as well. Because, Russia is under sanctions and India is also under pressure from Washington. As President Trump imposed 50% plus, tariffs on Indian exports to the USA, and they are still negotiating their, bilateral trade agreement. So India is under pressure these days, and they have to, act in a very balancing manner to fulfill their needs, particularly in the defense sector. That is why a private, entrepreneurs delegation was there in Moscow.
So do you think this visit was a routine diplomacy or more like a desperate assertion of relevance by Russia?
Obviously, Russia is pressing, the Indian side to import more from, Russia, in addition to what they are getting cheap fuel from the Russian side, and also to fulfill the Indian needs, where they are, in desperate need of having Russian technology, and they can develop, establish manufacturing units within India to meet their demands.
Asif talked about the depth of Russia-India relations. Now, what we see now during the visit is that, for instance, Mr. Putin said that Russia was ready for, his words were, continuous supply of oil to India, which is developing rapidly. But there was no mention
Exactly.
of this particular thing in India's statement. India's foreign secretary, the Prime Minister also did not make any reference to it. And even in the case of defense deal, they were reluctant to answer the questions of the press.
President Trump is on record having said that India's import of Russian oil is in effect, giving fuel to war in Ukraine.
They call it Modi's war.
Yeah. So India has to look towards Washington as well while they have to enter into any new deal with Russia on this count, particularly getting the fuel at a discounted rate from Russia. So there was no commitment or a response to President Putin's offer of continuing with the supply chain for India, at least for discounted fuel.
Asif, coming to you, mate, do the multiple MOUs, a number of MOUs were signed during the visit, do they signal that India is willing to challenge Western strategic expectations?
I think more than challenging, India would like to have its interests secured. It is also doing business with the West. Don't forget that India is a huge market.
Yes.
So, West, especially the European countries, cannot ignore India. America can also not ignore, but yes, at the moment, President Trump has taken a stand, and which is shocking for Prime Minister Modi. But when you talk about the West, they have business more than United States as far as volume is concerned. So it is they will not object to India to the extent that one could expect. It is not possible. And more importantly, Russia and India trade is not that big as you compare to West or United States. It's around
$68 billion.
$68 billion.
That's because of the oil now.
And in which the balance of trade is in Russia's favor.
Heavily in Russia's favor.
Yes, so here I think Russia had to, in fact, entice and mollify the Indians. And that's why you could see that there have been regularity of visits between the two countries, but especially from Russian side.
Asif, this visit of, you see, we know that Russia is heavily dependent on China for a number of things. So do you think Mr. Putin's visit signals a renewed Russia-India axis, or is Moscow simply trying to avoid over-dependence on China, using India as a geopolitical insurance?
But when you talk about dependence, so you have to see what dependence Russia has on China.
Oil.
So India can't match it. What kind of India is the market? But
it's a huge market at the same time, mate.
Well, yes, fairly good market for...
It's larger than China.
No, for the Russians. But for elsewhere in the world, it's not. So this is, you have to look at it. And China, what China can offer to Russia, I don't think that India
can
offer.
do that.
And Indians also know it, and Russians also know it. So here I think...
So, yes.
I just want to add that, India is also negotiating a free trade agreement. With the trade zone within,
with it's doing it with Europe.
Where you have Russia, where you have Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and
with
Armenia and
Eurasian
other countries. So once this, FTA is finalized, India will, take full opportunities to increase its exports to the Eurasian zone.
Okay. Gentlemen, given Russia's deepening dependence on China, does India genuinely believe Moscow can be a neutral player in Indo-China rivalry? Where does Delhi fit in that hierarchy?
Yeah,
Yes?
given India's relationship as of today with China in terms of their trade relationship, it's huge. So, if you just reduce the import of fuel from Russia, then the volume of bilateral trade is
It comes
just,
to around $8 billion.
around $8 to $10 billion.
Yes, less than 10.
So, the relationship between China and India will continue to increase because India is getting much cheaper.
But that's besides the point, mate. That's besides the point. You just tell me that given Russia's deepening dependence on China, does India believe that Moscow can be a neutral player in India-China rivalry?
But obviously, if their bilateral trade is increased, as I was talking about, the trading community within Russia and other countries, then maybe Russia and its other countries, they become an alternate to India's dependence on China in terms of bilateral trade.
Asif?
I think India and China, you have seen the Galwan experience.
Yes.
They were able to resolve their dispute bilaterally. Of course, not it's fully resolved. Still, you can see that it's India and China, they have been negotiating. And they have come to a stage where now they can say that yes, they have attained peace. And they are heading towards that. So we can't say that there's acrimony on both sides, despite the fact that China had the upper hand. In Galwan Valley, still it is, as per Indians, in occupation of 2,000 kilometers of the so-called Indian territory, while China rightly claims that it is their territory. So India won't be depending on Russia's favor when they have to seek this kind of favor and compare between China and Russia. I think India is big enough to be ignored.
To be
ignored.
Russia is
India is
big enough to be ignored or not to be ignored.
No, you can't ignore it.
You can't ignore it. Yeah.
So I think India has got a weight, but in its own dealing with the neighborhood, I think India is not great enough to deal with its smaller neighbors. So this is a, you can say, dilemma we face in the region. So India has tried to play its cards with the big powers, and it wants to project itself as definitely a big power. However, it has had a setback.
So in case of rivalry, India-China rivalry, how does India view Moscow? What are, Indian analysts, their policy makers, what do they have in mind about Moscow in case of India-China rivalry? Where would they think Moscow will stand?
I think I haven't seen any sort of uneasiness in the Indian strategic community.
You have not seen that?
No, I haven't seen it. I stand corrected, but I think Indians are confident enough. And
confident of what?
Of tackling the dispute issues with China. So they will not be depending on Russia's support. India is confident enough. And Russia also, I think, is not in a position to dictate terms to China. And China is not in a mood to, number one, to be dictated, and number two, to contribute to, worsening of the situation with India. So this needs to be understood in the regional context as well as in the global context. And so it's you can say, balance. They have tried to maintain both. Russia versus China. Russia versus China, and China versus India, and India versus Russia. So this is a, you can say, balancing act which they are performing.
But they also have a trilateral: Russia, India, China. That's
that
not
brick
very
is there.
It is there, but it's not very active at the moment. But
dormant.
Still, it's there.
It has been dormant, and Russia was trying. President Putin also tried, that it has to be revived. And I think if India's bad patch with the United States continues, so perhaps the Rick may
That
be
could
revived.
become active.
Yeah.
Yes, coming
Can
to
I
you.
add one
Yes,
thing?
please, go ahead.
You know, India is a neighbor to China, right? And they have a history of, you know, having wars between the two countries. On the other hand, Russia has always extended support to India in difficult times, and they have a history of that, and they have bilateral agreement of friendship as well in the past. So given, you know, the situation as it stands today, I believe that India would expect support from Russia, given their common past, Soviet Union era, as well as their ongoing cooperation, that Russia will support India if
Ongoing
the situation,
cooperation in what?
bilateral cooperation
yes, there's
in the
ongoing
defense sector, in the
cooperation,
political
yes.
side.
In the defense sector, it's
Yes.
coming down. In the oil
No.
sector, energy sector, it's coming down. So bilateral cooperation between Russia and India is getting narrow at the moment.
It is getting narrowed. It may increase as well. Given, you know, how many meetings President Prime Minister Modi has held with President Putin. You just mentioned the number, more than 10.
20.
No, 10 visits I am talking about to India from Putin.
10 visits, yes.
Okay, so they have, you know, their history of strong relationship. It does not matter, you know, their bilateral trade is less today, and and they hope to increase in the next, you know, 10 years.
That's what I would like to come to next, gentlemen, that Russia-India relations are too dependent on defense and energy. And as one of the analysts said, that the economic leg of relationship has been very, very weak. Both sides aim to increase bilateral trade to US dollars 100 billion in the next 5 years. A tough task, mate.
I don't think so. They can, if they want to. For instance, if Russia and India enter into some big ticket defense deal, so it's possible.
If that is an if, but there is at the moment there is
why-
no indication,
why
because I mean this was the best time for the two sides to sign a major defense deal. And as I said in my intro, that since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there has been no major defense deal between the two
not
sides
now.
because of the US pressure.
But I think their dialogue is ongoing, and it is not ended. So
Asif, S-400, initially Russia agreed to provide 5 batteries. They could only manage 3. Because of their problem with Ukraine, they have not been able to do that. This is one of the deterrent in the bilateral defense agreement between the two sides. Similarly, the 5th generation plane, India is refusing to buy it because of the American pressure.
The question is, from where else India can get it?
US. The US wants it.
I don't
France.
I don't think, because French are too expensive. And they have seen it, the kind of setback they had with on Rafale aircraft.
But that was not because of the...
And Americans, there are a lot of strings attached to the American.
Exactly. That's not the case with
And
Russia.
India would be cautious enough to go towards the United States. Had that been the case, they could have sued for F-35s. Why didn't they go for that? Or even for F-16s? They haven't gone for that. Because their comfort level with the Russian technology is more than the American.
But then if that is the case, mate, then Russia in fact offered them for co-production of this 5th generation plane, right? They agreed to transfer the technology, yet Mr. Modi has not agreed to that.
No, it's not the question of agreeing. They are negotiating.
No, the negotiations finished at
Yeah,
the moment.
easy. Indians are also hard bargainers, so don't forget that
So besides
they
defense,
are producing they were producing
MiG-29s.
21s earlier, then 29s, right? And 29s are still the mainstay of their Air Force.
Yes.
So subsequently, I think Indians are hard bargainers. They will go for it because they are comfortable, and then their comfort with the technology. Don't forget, it doesn't come in a cheaper way, even from technical point of view.
So, mate, besides defense, what else? They have, remember, they have to increase the trade to $100 billion from the present, which is what?
68.
About $68 billion.
68,
And if they reduce the oil, then it will come down further. So what other fields do you think they are available to them?
I don't know the items. Do you know
Agriculture,
that?
yes. Agriculture, food, health. For the first time,
Pharmaceuticals.
Russia and India have agreed to manpower exchange.
So I
But
think.
do you think, for instance, agriculture, in Russia itself is a producer of agriculture products.
Well, it depends what commodities you want to exchange. Definitely,
they are also
what you already
cooperating.
are producing, you will not buy that.
They also want to cooperate in the shipbuilding sector,
Yes.
Yes.
which is a big,
It's not a small,
it is a capital intensive, industry. So obviously, if they start cooperating in that sector, the volume will increase.
Okay, is India's so-called strategic autonomy just a phrase for leaning on Russia militarily while quoting US economically, Asif?
Well, they can play, but somehow I think President Trump has put all their plans, upside down. So Mr. Modi is not a happy man for the timing.
So this strategic autonomy, it has become a diplomatic euphemism.
Yeah, but India has used it, quite successfully so far. No doubt, they in the end they face some problem from China, and Washington.
They have used this term so excessively that it has become a laughing.
And this strategic autonomy is being really tested, challenged at the moment.
Yes.
So, Asif, does India's embrace of Russia at a time of US friction suggest a deliberate pivot, or is it merely a temporary hedging strategy?
Well, it could be both. Temporary because of Trump's. But subsequently, you can see that, and we shouldn't forget that United States institutions, at least more than 2 decades, they have been cultivating India. And when at the institutional level, there is support to India. It is only President Trump who has taken a strange stance. I would still call it strange. Reason is that you never know what will happen tomorrow. They are already into negotiations on trade issues, and then there are certain vibes that American trade representative has been sounding quite positive as far as their trade negotiations with India.
In fact, they are in New Delhi now.
Yes, so we should not. In fact, I would not be comfortable in discussing Trump's policies towards any country, including Pakistan. So I think we have to be very cautious. Even our analysis could go wrong.
Exactly.
Whether it is India or whether it is Pakistan. So leaving that aside, it is India, in any case, has got the wherewithal, it has got the resources, and that's why it has got nuisance value internationally.
Okay, Riaz, this visit, does it reveal that India is no longer committed to US-led Indo-Pacific framework?
I think we mentioned earlier, India is using all options which are available. I mean, it does not want to lose Russia while they're following.
So how is its
the US
commitment
policy in the
to
matter.
Indo-Pacific
So
strategy?
India wants to have all the options open and available to it. This is my view on that.
And yeah, Asif?
Yeah, I tend to agree with this.
So, how does India reconcile its Indo-Pacific strategy with Russia's open opposition to Indo-Pacific framework?
That I think India was. I don't see India's enthusiasm towards Indo-Pacific. Reason is it knows quite well it cannot provide whatever was expected of India. It was the United States which projected India as a net security provider. But in real terms, It has not happened, especially after the May exchanges between India and Pakistan. So, therefore, this term has also got a drubbing, this net security provider. So, no one is talking anymore about the net security provider.
But you have to keep in view, Riaz, keep in view Russia's open opposition to Indo-Pacific framework. So, on one side, there is Russia opposing in the Indo-Pacific framework, and on the other side, US is propping up India as Asif said, a net security provider.
Net security provider is no more being, pronounced these days. If you look into that,
not at the moment.
Since May this year, people are not talking about India being a net security provider in the region. And if you look into, how many new, avenues has been explored by Pakistan by reaching out to different countries, like with Indonesia, for example. We are discussing defense cooperation. Like we are entering into Gaza.
What sort of a defense cooperation can you have with Indonesia? There are so many divergences.
Divergences are also there, but if you start meeting each other,
there are hardly any convergences between
and
Indonesia
negotiating
and Pakistan
on these issues, you can explore these avenues. And people are talking to Pakistan in this regard.
Asif?
Yeah, that's there. Pakistan, in fact, again, after the May episode, Pakistan has gained diplomatically and militarily. And this has also been now being discussed at the regional levels, say West Asia, where you saw Saudi Arabia, Pakistan entering into a strategic partnership agreement. And then they have gone one step ahead, saying that attack on one country would be considered on both. So this
Saudis.
This was unusual.
That's hardly, Asif, that's hardly,
No,
there are so many lacunas in that.
The question is, you may brush it aside, but it's a reality. And it was not
hardly a reality,
No,
mate.
it was not discussed before May. You think it was discussed?
Okay.
So these are the things which are coming up. Diplomatically, you have gained.
Yes, we have.
So you have not gained it just for nothing. So these are, it's the narrative building. It's the narrative building at the international level. Now Pakistan, earlier they were, I think, not taking Pakistan seriously, but now Pakistan is...
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, in fact, Asif his views on whether Afghanistan came under discussion during this visit to New Delhi.
Amazingly, no.
It did not.
No,
it did not.
no,
Though Mr. Putin did make some remarks on Afghanistan before he came to India, but in a press conference. But during
in a press interview.
In the press interview.
But in New Delhi, he did not.
He did not raise it with because apparently there were not convergences between India's point of view and Russia's point of view on Afghanistan. Asif?
But I think there is a difference because Russia has recognized Afghanistan regime, Taliban regime, and India has upgraded its relationship. And they are now entering into more cooperation. So, and that cooperation perhaps was intended against Pakistan. As the apprehension was.
So, Asif, the second point which I was looking for, whether Putin said anything to diffuse the situation in the region as far as Pakistan, India.
Nothing of the sort.
There was no discussion on that, of course.
No, there was discussion on regional issues.
At least in the joint statement which was issued, there was no reference to Pakistan.
Any talk on Ukraine? Because
yes,
President of Ukraine is coming.
Modi talked about a peaceful solution.
Yes.
They pleaded for
but
peace.
You see, he's right. They did talk about a peaceful resolution of the dispute in Ukraine. He said that this is not an era of war. Nevertheless, there was no deliberate or specific mention of Ukraine, Russia problems during this joint statement. This joint statement or this visit was primarily bilateral, primarily between India and Pakistan. Gentlemen, let's bring it to an end. After the visit, of Mr. Putin. Is Russia-India relationship being strengthened, managed, or merely maintained for optics?
No, I think any exchange of visit and then the kind of MOUs they have signed does contribute to the strengthening of their relationship.
I agree. Yeah,
You agree?
I agree.
Okay, final. What does Moscow's renewed outreach to New Delhi imply for China's growing influence over Russia?
I don't think so. I mean, we should not be reading too much into that.
We should not be.
Yeah, because Russia's relationship with China has its own merits, and Russia's relationship with India has its own merits. So I think.
But you see, mate, for India, it is important how Russia and China, how near they become. Because remember, they have defense cooperation with Russia, and now Russia is using large parts or spare parts or chips in manufacturing defense equipment, and India is concerned about it.
So what?
And they have expressed their concern to the Russians.
We on JF-17 we were using Russian engines. Of course, China supplied that under permission from the Russians. So these kind of exchanges are very much there, and for Russia, China has its own importance, and India has. We have already discussed it. So I don't think that there is a need to read too much into that.
Riaz, anything?
I think since the Ukraine war, China has, or Russia has become much closer to China in terms of bilateral cooperation, and I would say even dependence upon China has increased. And India is a neighbor to China. So China should be, it should be a concern for India that the two countries, one is adversary to India, and the other is time-tested friend of India. If the other two countries are closing their ranks with each other, obviously it should be a bit concern for India.
Okay.
And if I may add one
Please,
liner
please.
to that, because I think China is a mature superpower, and they would very much want India to be on their side. And if you look at it from the regional perspective, and since India is also part of SCO, so I think China would not want to push India to a level where it is out of the orbit. They would not want that. And I think in that respect, I hope that already I think discussions are on between India and China, and perhaps Russia may play
A role in that. Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up tonight's discussion, one thing is unmistakable. President Putin's latest visit to India was not just a diplomatic ritual. It was more than a ceremony of friendship. It was a signal that the two sides are recalibrating their partnership, as has already been discussed in this conversation. Now, in the larger context, for Russia, it was a demonstration of relevance in Asia, while masking an uncomfortable dependence on China. And for India, it was a calculated display of its strategic autonomy, a signal to the West that it has other options. The agreements signed during this visit may appear routine, but they again signal Russia that is determined to anchor India in its geopolitical orbit. But ladies and gentlemen, behind these optics lie the harsh realities. For India, its ties with US, particularly in trade and technology, are not just optional, they are foundational. US is India's largest trading partner and a source of markets and investments. On the other hand, Russia's economic footprint in India is very limited, and it is confined to oil, that is energy, and defense. So here the contradictions become uncomfortable. New Delhi has for long claimed, boasted, and prided in its policy of strategic autonomy, but as it seems that strategic autonomy is being challenged. And complicating the matters further for India is Donald Trump's rejection or seemingly refusal to accept India's Russia exception policy, which unlike Biden administration, which had readily accepted that. The transactional Trump wants or demands concessions. So, ladies and gentlemen, the visit, irrespective of the outcome and what the future holds, it actually provided a window into the vulnerabilities and ambitions of the two leaders and their nations, navigating a fractured world where economic dependence, strategic necessity, and political personality collide. Thank you for watching Ambassador's Lounge. Please subscribe to our channel and we will be back. Thank you.